we tend to measure it. Well, my sin isn't as bad as their sin, therefore I shouldn't experience the same consequence.
Right.
But to God, all sin is death.
Yeah. Right.
All sin is.
Absolutely.
And so that consequence is always there.
Yeah.
And if I don't experience that consequence, it's purely by the mercy and grace of God.
Yeah.
That's it.
Hello, and welcome to Now That'll Preach.
That'll preach.
My name is Jared Crowley. I am your host, and I'm sitting across from Pastor David Freck. For those of you who are new to That'll Preach, we are taking your questions, topics, concerns, and we are throwing them at this guy with no prep whatsoever.
No prep preaching.
And asking him to preach a little 5-10 minute sermon out on it. And we have yet to make you sort of like take a step back and go like, oh, I can't do this.
Yeah, let's
ease into
I'm afraid when you say that, I'm like,
This one, honestly, this one's a pretty softball question in my opinion.
Okay.
But I think that could just be because I've spent a lot of time around Royce and he's really passionate about this.
Okay.
So someone posed the question, why do bad things happen to good people?
Oh, yeah, you're asking that question. Okay. There's a lot of reasons for it, but the primary reason is because we are in a sinful world. That's the primary reason.
Sure.
It rains on the just and the unjust. So the consequences of bad things is a result of sin, just the overarching nature of sin. Once Adam made the mistake, the whole earth and everything in it became subject to that single disobedience.
Right.
So you go to Romans chapter 8, it talks about how all of creation is groaning and waiting for the redemption of the sons of God. So because their redemption is connected to ours.
Right.
And so it is the consequence of sin. What we would call in a general term Adamic sin.
Sure.
So when that happened, sickness entered the world, strife entered the world, disease entered the world, chaos entered the world, selfishness, everything associated with sin entered the world.
Right.
And so then the Bible tells us later on that wherever there is, these certain things, all the potential of sin itself can be realized.
Yeah, absolutely.
So even making right decisions and right choices, and loving God and serving God doesn't preclude that because I'm in a sinful world, I'm exempt from the effects of that in the earth.
Absolutely.
So just because I'm in the earth, I'm going to still experience the ramifications of the chaos of sin.
Yeah,
still going to experience it. Still have to deal with it.
Right.
And that's where the grace of God becomes so critical. How necessary it is for the grace of God to be active in my life.
Yeah.
Because how do I manage the things that are not congruent with my behavior?
Yep.
So think about it this way. Our whole life is built on basically two, what's the term I'm looking for? Two flows of life.
Okay.
So mercy and grace, mercy and grace, mercy and grace, mercy and grace. So I'm either, as it relates to God, I'm either not getting something I do deserve, or I'm receiving something I don't deserve,
totally.
right? So if we always love to say, why does this happen? I'm a good person. Why does this happen to me? And so then we say, well, great. Yeah, that's not fair.
Yeah. Right.
But I would also say, is it fair that you get away with things that you do deserve?
Right. It isn't.
Where you don't experience the consequences of things that you should experience the consequences for. So we always tend to look at it from the one angle, and we refuse to look at it from the other.
Yeah.
And the truth is that I'm either leveraging mercy or I'm leveraging grace as I'm moving through life. And I'm either leveraging, hey, I'm not receiving the consequence of something I really should get. So thank God for those days.
Right.
And then there's times I'm not receiving I am receiving something that I don't deserve, and thank God for those days.
Yeah.
So it's always They're always contending with each other.
Right.
Because if we really experience the consequence of our own actions, understand the wages of sin is death.
Yeah. Right.
So how much sin do I have to do to deserve death?
Right.
We measure it, right?
Tiniest amount. Right.
Yeah, we
right,
measure it.
Right.
So how much arsenic does it take to kill you?
Right. Right.
You know?
Right.
So we tend to measure it. Well, my sin isn't as bad as their sin, therefore I shouldn't experience the same consequence.
Right.
But to God, all sin is death.
Yeah. Right.
All sin is.
Absolutely.
And so that consequence is always there.
Yeah.
And if I don't experience that consequence, it's purely by the mercy and grace of God.
Yeah.
That's it.
Right.
So yes, I you know, good is still not God.
Yeah. Exactly.
And therefore, we're grateful for the mercy and grace of God that He affords us when we're not getting the things we we do deserve.
For sure. For sure.
And we also celebrate the times when God gives us things we don't deserve. So
absolutely.
it's kind of that balance in life. And I know that's the thing that people get stuck on.
Sure.
And I get it.
Yeah.
I get why they get stuck on it.
Right.
But I would really challenge people to understand that, yeah, you don't deserve everything that happens to you, but you also benefit from the fact that you get away with things.
Right, absolutely.
And God sees it all.
Yeah, for sure.
And He'll give us the strength and the grace to manage it from both
Absolutely.
directions.
Yeah, and
So,
that's the thing I think too, is like it being a teaching moment for you, you know what I mean? And it really, like, those moments are really where I think God gets a lot of work done in the relationship with you. And also, I mean, there's so many people that I look at here and my heart just breaks because there's such a testimony. You know what I mean? Like the attitude that they have with the situations that they're dealing with.
It magnifies the goodness of God.
Exactly.
That while they're struggling through something, that they've got joy, they've got peace, they still serve, they still love, they still give, they still, and you're like, man, they're going through so much, and how can they be this way?
Right.
Well, that's a testimony of the goodness of God.
Yeah.
And you would never see the depth of their walk with God without those times. And while it's difficult to watch them experience that, we can celebrate the incredible testimony, like you said, that they have as they go through it. You know, and so, you know, you never like to watch somebody go through it poorly. You can always celebrate those that go through it well.
For sure.
With the grace and mercy of God.
Yeah.
So that's so important and so helpful and such a blessing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, sir. That was great.
My pleasure. It's that was a good one.
Yeah, it is.
A good question. It's not a softball. It's a challenging question.
It's like, I think it's something that can be answered easily, but explained. Like, it takes a little bit more to explain it. You know what I mean?
If you don't have a God context,
right.
It doesn't make sense to you. If sin is not an issue, right? If you just think everybody's good, therefore everybody deserves the best, and we don't see it from God's point of view at all, then yeah, it's going to be incongruent. But if you understand it from God's point of view, then you become grateful, and you're filled with thanksgiving because and appreciation because God's merciful and generous with us on a consistent basis.
Absolutely. Well, appreciate you, man. Appreciate you guys.
Love you all.
Thank you guys for watching. Send in all your questions, topics, concerns, and we will see you next week.
All right, that'll preach.
That'll preach.